He starred as Prime Minister, of course, leading the country through a period of massive social change. Now Jason Watkins has taken on his next major role in a brand new, and sounds really interesting to me, ITV drama. It's called Archie.
It is brilliant, based on the career of one of Hollywood's biggest stars, Cary Grant, with Jason playing his friend and agent, Stanley Fox. The series follows Cary Grant's early, turbulent life. And Jason Watkins, you are now acting as agent for the programme, aren't you?
I am
representing it on the sofa this morning.
Yes, and what a lovely comb over I had. I was just watching that. It's wonderful. I mean, Jason Isaacs looks fantastic. Looks $1 million, doesn't he?
Well, he looks just like Cary Grant.
Well, he does, and it's a brilliant impersonation, I have to say. He goes right into the depth of that character, of Cary Grant. And I think what's going to be interesting to viewers is to understand his background and how Cary Grant started his life in poverty.
Born in Bristol.
In Bristol.
Yep.
And he only made his way to America because he went to work in the theatre, and that theatre he was an usher, and then that went over to the States, and he went with them. And his family background, his father and mother, there was an amount of abuse and alcoholism, and so for him to end up like he did in the sort of glamour of Hollywood is extraordinary, but it's also, there's a mixture of, he's carried a little bit of that with him. So the person that you see on screen is very different to the person that was...
He was famous principally for two things, separate from his acting ability, which was fantastic. His voice, the way that he spoke, which was unique. I don't think anyone's ever spoken like Cary Grant.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of Bristol, a bit of
Bristol, a bit of American, also a bit of Cockney. It's really an interesting mix. But that's not how he spoke in his private life. In his private life, a very rare recording, which we can't play because it's in a locker somewhere, emerged from, I think, 2 years before he died.
Okay.
He was speaking in this country. He didn't know he was being recorded, and he spoke with quite a posh, cut-glass accent.
Yeah.
But that was an act as well, because his real accent
maybe
was Bristolian.
It was probably like many actors, actually. It's a struggle to find out actually who you are and how you can find friendship groups, and you're used to slipping into different characters, which we all do. And sometimes I think we all do that in our lives, don't we, to get through certain social situations. And we're different with different people. And I think with actors that can be extreme, and it certainly was in his case. But he did provide this incredible golden moment of Hollywood history as a brilliant leading man. And so I think it's going to be surprising for audience to see Jason Isaacs play him with Laura Aikman, who plays Diane Carroll.
Well, the second thing, very quickly, I was going to say that he was incredibly famous for were his looks. He was, for decades, seen as the handsomest man in Hollywood.
It's like your handsomest man.
No, but seriously, he was extraordinarily good-looking. Yeah,
he was, and I think that obviously drew audiences to him, you know. But he's a good actor as well. All the stuff with Hitchcock and stuff is... It's not just about looks and stardom. He's a great actor.
Yeah. I want to ask you about truth in docudramas, because, of course, this is telling a real story.
Yeah.
But you get a few words at the beginning which says some of it we might have told some stories about which aren't entirely true.
Yeah.
Now, you've also been in The Crown. You played the Prime Minister, Harold Wilson. How much of an obligation do dramatists, storytellers, filmmakers have to be accurate? And how much should you just think, a lot of this is made up, don't use this for your history essay in your A-level?
Yeah, this is a drama. The Crown is a drama. It's not a documentary. And history is not a fixed thing. No. History is something that you have an opinion of it, and different historians will write different things about, let's say, the Boer War or something. There'll be a completely different view on it. And in terms of drama, I think Peter's always saying, and I've done that because Peter Morgan wrote Lost Honor of Christopher Jefferies, and there are facts and there are truths, and some of the truths that can liberate whole...
So what's the difference between a fact and a truth?
I think truth is more of an emotional and instinctive thing.
Okay.
And...
oh, yes, people who say our truth, my truth.
Yeah,
it might be different from your truth.
Really
it's different. But, you know, what is a cold, hard fact? I mean, all I can say is that I didn't write it. I was an actor, and I did my research on Harold Wilson was extensive. And I met people who'd worked with him, and I did all my and I'm not responsible for the whole piece, but I have to say, I think in terms of The Crown, I think that it humanised the royal family.
Well, what do you think about their inclusion in the latest series of scenes of Diana coming back and talking to the Queen as a ghost? Because personally, I think that's gone too far.
I haven't seen that, so I can't comment on that.
Well, you're not going to, are you?
Well, I mean, I look forward to seeing it.
You are apparently in the running, I'm sure we would all hope this is true, for an Oscar. With One Note Man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm personally, but no, this...
I think you should be, well, Jason. Frankly, I really think you should be. It's
you
a
said,
charming...
Just say it a bit louder.
It's a charming short
He deserves
film.
an Oscar.
This came my way because the script was sent to me, and it was a beautiful script. There's no words. It's a beautiful, warm, short film, and it was entered in, I think, eight film festivals so far, and has won 18 awards. And it's in Cannes and in the Rhode Island, and that means, because it's won the Rhode Island Short Film Festival, it now qualifies for the Oscars. So it's by a little company called Cusp Films. There's myself and lovely Louisa Klein and Crystal Yu, but it's about a little guy who just plays one note every day, and he settles for his life in the orchestra, and then something happens halfway through, and his whole life turns around and changes. So, and it's a beautiful piece. And the director is a television director, and now I think he wanted to show his skills and say, listen, I can direct movies, and he's done this in this piece.
We're going to talk to you about something that's very close to your heart, something called Martha's Rule, in just 1 second. But just before we do, I've got one question for you as an actor. How do you, when you're filming something like that, or anything that you're doing for screen, given that they're filmed in little episodic chunks, and in between time there's crew running around and spilling coffee and having sandwiches and stuff, and then it's action and you're on. How do you centre yourself? How do you centre yourself as a performer and turn into the character?
Well, two ways of doing it, really. I used to just sort of, when I was just go into a corner and sort of like do a bit of that and try and stay in character. And I used to come in with the first thought of what my character would say. What's the first thought in his head? And I'd hang on to that and then trust that everything else would follow. So sometimes you can just turn, like in McDonald and Dodds, which we've done another series of that, 4th series now.
Brilliant.
I'm so used to playing him, I can sort of be chatting a bit and then go straight into him. But other jobs like Harold and stuff, you just want to take a bit of time and ease your way into it. But that's one of the joys of being an actor. You can sort of leave your troubled world behind sometimes and you know, launch into something else. So, I mean, and I know we're going to talk about Martha's Rule, in that, you know, I was fortunate when... Fortunate isn't the right word, but, you know, when we lost Maud, I was...
She was 2.5, wasn't she?
She was 2.5 and died of sepsis, which is, I know, is a condition which is very much, we're talking about it and about Martha's Rule, but I was able to go to work, whereas my wife, Clara, you know, she was sort of left at home with struggling, and there she is. So, you know, it's sometimes it's good to be able to move into another character.
Escape, yeah.
Jason, it's absolutely, I know it's devastating, and still, it's 10 years ago that you lost your little girl. I spent some time recently with Merripy Mills, whose daughter, Martha, died. She was a teenager. And Merripy has brought in Martha's Rule, which is an obligation in hospitals that if you disagree with the way that the doctors are treating someone close to you, you can call a number and say, oh, I need this reviewed. I need a second opinion. Now, and I know you've been part of that campaign, quite rightly, and what I think is so shocking is that in the 10 years since you lost Maudie, that we are still in a position where parents are not being listened to about
it's astonishing. It's astonishing, really. And I know many people who've seen me on this sofa and many other sofas, in many articles, myself and Clara, my wife, talking about sepsis and trying to get better clinical practice and awareness. And it was a real body blow to think that just a few weeks ago, the Ombudsman report on sepsis care said that nothing had really changed. So I took it really personally. I had a couple of really difficult days. And because you feel lost and I felt a bit like a victim again of sepsis, and parents and people who've lost loved ones feel that. You feel fate has dealt you a horrific blow. As you can see, there she is. So she's no longer with us. So, yes, Martha's Rule is one part of many things that we do.
Can I ask, Jason, why are parents arguing with doctors about symptoms, clear symptoms of sepsis, beyond the point where their child can be saved? What is it in the culture of doctors in hospitals or in the community where A, they're not noticing, B, they're not acting, and C, they're not listening?
I think with infant A&E, there are often complex systems and symptoms being displayed. With sepsis, you can have influenza or, for example, as the sort of key route to the illness, and sepsis then leads. So what I'm saying, it's a complex picture, and it would cost a lot of money to be able to rule out all these various things that could be happening to your child. I don't think that's an excuse at all, but I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be a little look at infant A&E and how it works. I suppose what I'm saying is that sepsis is linked to many other conditions. So it's not just, there's sepsis, it's really easy, why haven't you spotted it? I mean, that is the main thing, but clinicians can get drawn into other areas and forget that sepsis is the main thing that could be happening. So it's a complex picture.
And somebody coming in from the outside...
Yeah.
Looking at a fresh...
And a fresh way of looking at it. But ultimately, you have to rule out sepsis first. And as a parent, as with Merope's rule, you must say, could this be sepsis? The UK Sepsis Trust, as we talk about all the time, could it be sepsis? And you should ask your doctor, your GP, when you take your child to the GP, when you think they've got a chest infection, which is what I did with Maud, that you're able to say that. And they have to rule sepsis out first. And sepsis is seen as part of the ongoing story of your child through a hospital. And Merope's rule is, as Martha's rule, is a brilliant way of reminding people, both parents and doctors and nurses.
You put it so clearly, so cogently, and it's unarguable with. You're so right.
I'm so
and
sorry.
And I also just think that, you know, having one tiny last point is that I do feel that the government needs to step up in terms of things like a national database and a national awareness campaign, as well as funding individual trusts for sepsis. Because, you know, if you get an ombudsman report, it's there for a reason. The report is, it hasn't worked. So as the government's responsibility, and the government, they represent us. And
just finally, if you're a parent, you're concerned, what are the symptoms of sepsis?
Well, you can be cold to the touch, shivering, not passing water for 24 hours. You can be pale and limp, skin mottled. And also, I think the main thing, for parents, say, well, my child's not well, and I don't quite know what it is. This isn't something I've seen before. There's something wrong about it. And your instinct as a parent, and this is what's great about Martha's Law, is you can say, I, as a parent...
I know my child.
I know my child. You've got to disprove my instincts as a parent before you can say what the illness is. But...
So powerful. I'm sorry that in 10 years it's
still here.
It's still here, but I think it'll... You know, we've had great help from people like Iceland who've always sort of supported us and given us money, but you kind of think, well, it actually needs us as a society to value it, because governments only represent our opinions. Well, they should do. But, you know, if we as a society feel that children are dying needlessly, elderly people, because, you know, 243,000 cases per year, 48,000 deaths, we think there's about 15,000 that are preventable. That is a big problem. That's a problem in any society. It's more than road traffic accidents and several cancers combined. So hang about, this is a real problem. Might cost a bit of money to deal with, but we've got to address it. Otherwise, you'll have... You know, a lovely boy called Daniel died at the Royal Free in the same week that our documentary came out, in the same way that Maud died, and obviously Martha. So it's... we've got to get hold of it.
All right.
Such a powerful voice, Jason. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank
you. Good
to talk to you. And if you're affected by those issues, there is advice and support, itv.com/helplines.